Get up. Now. I don't know who let you in here, but the cleaning crew is supposed to be gone before the first-class passengers board." The voice cracked like a whip across the silent cabin. Kendra didn't even look up from her tablet. She simply adjusted her noise-cancelling headphones, hoping the screeching woman in the designer trench coat would evaporate. She didn't. Instead, a manicured hand slammed onto Kendra's tray table, rattling her sparkling water. "Are you deaf? I said move! Security! Someone get this person out of my seat before I call the police." Little did she know that single demand was about to cost her everything. The rain at O'Hare International Airport battered the reinforced glass of the private lounge, creating a rhythmic drumming that usually soothed Kendra Reynolds. Today, however, it just felt like static noise layering over the headache, pulsing behind her right temple. Kendra adjusted the hood of her oversized charcoal grey hoodie. To the untrained eye, she looked like a tired college student, or perhaps an exhausted backup dancer coming off a tour. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled back into a messy, functional bun. Her sweatpants were comfortable, and her sneakers, while expensive, were scuffed from weeks of travel. There was absolutely nothing about her appearance that screamed majority shareholder, and that was exactly how she wanted it. She took a sip of her lukewarm herbal tea and glanced at the time on her phone. 10:45 p.m. The flight to Zurich was scheduled to board in 20 minutes. It had been a grueling month. Kendra was the CEO of Ether Logistics, a company that had quietly become the backbone of global shipping, but her recent acquisition was far more personal and far more volatile. 3 days ago, Kendra had finalized a hostile takeover of Vanguard Airways. It hadn't hit the news yet. The press release was scheduled for tomorrow morning, Zurich time. As of this moment, technically, she owned the plane she was about to board, but she hadn't flown private today. She wanted to see the product. She wanted to experience the service of her new asset from the inside, without the red carpet and the terrified staff bowing to her every whim. She wanted to know if the rumors about Vanguard's declining service standards and elitist culture were true. "Ms. Reynolds?" Kendra looked up. A lounge attendant, a young man named Leo, stood there with a fresh pot of tea. He smiled nervously. He didn't know who she was. The reservation was booked under her middle name, Jasmine, and a Shell Company credit card. But he seemed to sense she was tired. "Fresh hot water, Mum. I noticed yours was getting cold." "Thank you, Leo," Kendra said, her voice raspy from lack of sleep. "That's very kind of you. It's a long flight to Zurich. You should be comfortable," he said, placing the pot down gently. "Is there anything else I can get you before boarding starts? Some magazines? A blanket?" "No, I'm fine. Just need to close my eyes for a bit." "Understood. I'll wake you when they call first class." Kendra watched him walk away. Good, she thought. The ground staff is attentive. That was a plus. She pulled up the dossier on her tablet again. Vanguard Airways had been hemorrhaging money due to lawsuits regarding passenger treatment. The previous board of directors had been a boys' club of old money types who viewed economy passengers as cattle and first-class passengers as royalty, provided they looked the part. Kendra had grown up in South Chicago. She knew what it felt like to be looked at like you didn't belong. She had clawed her way up from a warehouse dispatcher to owning the warehouse, then the fleet, then the competition. She didn't have patience for prejudice, and she had zero tolerance for disrespect. A commotion near the lounge entrance drew her attention. A woman swept in, followed by a porter struggling with 4 massive Louis Vuitton suitcases. The woman was blonde, painfully thin, and wearing a beige trench coat that probably cost more than a mid-sized sedan. She was on her phone, speaking loud enough for the entire lounge to hear. "No, Richard, I don't care what the board says. I'm going to Zurich to make sure the gala is set up correctly. If those idiots ruin the centerpiece, heads will roll. Did you get me the seat? 1A? You promised me 1A. Kendra glanced down at her digital boarding pass. Seat 1A. She smirked. Interesting. The woman, who Kendra decided to mentally label the Duchess, marched up to the desk. "I'm here. Sylvia Pendergast. I'm in 1A. Take my bags." The desk agent, a flustered woman named Nancy, typed rapidly. "Ah, Mrs. Pendergast. Welcome. I see your reservation here. There seems to be a slight discrepancy. You're booked in 1F. Seat 1A is already occupied." "Occupied?" Sylvia's voice went up an octave. "By whom?" "My husband specifically requested that seat. It has the extra bulkhead space for my carry-on." "I apologize, Ma'am, but 1A was booked weeks ago. 1F is an identical suite on the other side of the aisle." "I don't want the other side of the aisle. The other side gets the morning sun in my eyes upon landing. Move the person in 1A. Kendra watched from her corner, sipping her tea. The audacity was breathtaking. "I can't do that, Mrs. Pendergast," Nancy said, her voice trembling slightly. "The passenger has already checked in." Sylvia huffed, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "Fine. I'll handle it on the plane. Whoever it is, I'm sure they'll be reasonable once they realize who I am. Just get my bags on board, and make sure they don't scratch the leather." Sylvia turned and scanned the lounge. Her eyes swept over Kendra, dismissing her instantly as if she were a piece of furniture before landing on the bar. She marched over to demand a mimosa. Kendra set her cup down. This was going to be a very long flight. She picked up her phone and sent a quick text to her chief of operations, David. Message to David. "The Queen has arrived. If I lose signal, assume I'm in jail, or I've fired the entire crew. See you in Zurich." David replied instantly. "Please try not to buy the airport while you're there. We're over budget." Kendra chuckled. She stood up, grabbed her battered leather backpack, which contained a laptop worth $10,000 and contracts worth billions, and headed for the gate. She boarded first, thanks to her status, slipping into the cabin before Sylvia Pendergast could finish her drink. The first-class cabin of the Boeing 737 was luxurious. Individual suites with sliding doors, lie-flat beds, and massive entertainment screens. Seat 1A was the jewel, offering the most privacy. Kendra settled in, kicking off her sneakers and putting on the complimentary slippers. She pulled her hood up, put on her sunglasses, and curled up with her blanket. She just wanted to sleep. She closed her eyes, listening to the soft jazz playing over the speakers. 10 minutes later, the storm arrived. The smell of expensive, cloying perfume hit Kendra before the voice did. It was a heavy floral scent, something that smelled like roses and old money. "Excuse me?" Kendra didn't move. She kept her eyes closed behind her sunglasses, breathing slowly. Maybe if she ignored her, Sylvia would go away. "Hello? I know you're awake. I can see you breathing." A sharp tapping on the plastic shell of her suite. Tap, tap, tap. Kendra sighed, a long, ragged sound. She slid her headphones down around her neck and turned her head. Sylvia Pendergast was standing in the aisle, looming over her. Up close, the woman looked even more severe. Her makeup was flawless, but her expression was twisted into a sneer of utter contempt. "Can I help you?" Kendra asked, keeping her voice calm and low. "You're in my seat," Sylvia stated flatly. She gestured with a manicured hand as if shooing a fly. 1A. This is my seat. You need to move." Kendra glanced at the small digital display on the suite wall. It clearly read 1A. "I think you're mistaken," Kendra said. "I'm booked in 1A. I have the boarding pass right here." "I don't care what your little computer says," Sylvia snapped. "My husband is Richard Pendergast. He owns the Pendergast Group. We fly this airline exclusively. I always sit in 1A. There has clearly been a computer error. Now please, get up. You're likely in 1F, or perhaps you're in the wrong cabin entirely." Sylvia's eyes raked over Kendra's hoodie and sweatpants. The implication was clear. You look like trash, so you must be trash. "I'm in the right seat," Kendra said, turning back to her window. "And I'm not moving. F is open. I suggest you sit there." "Excuse me?" Sylvia gasped. She sounded like someone had just slapped her. "Do you know who you are talking to?" "A woman who doesn't understand how seat assignments work," Kendra offered. Sylvia's face went crimson. She stepped into Kendra's personal space, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss. "Listen to me, you little hood rat. I don't know how you scammed an upgrade or whose miles you stole to get in here, but you do not belong in this seat. This is a workspace for professionals, for people who matter. Look at you. You look like you just rolled out of a gutter. I have a gala to plan. I need this space. Now get up before I have you dragged off this plane." Kendra felt that familiar heat rise in her chest. It was the same heat she felt when bankers used to deny her loans because of her zip code. It was the same heat she felt when competitors assumed she was the secretary at board meetings. But Kendra was a shark, and sharks didn't bark, they bit. She slowly removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were dark, sharp, and intelligent. She held Sylvia's gaze with a terrifying calmness. "Touch me," Kendra whispered, "and you will regret it for the rest of your life." Sylvia recoiled slightly, startled by the intensity in Kendra's voice. But her entitlement was a powerful drug. She turned around and screamed toward the galley. "Attendant! Stewardess! Get out here! Now!" A young male flight attendant, the tag on his vest reading Liam, came rushing out of the galley. He looked terrified. He had clearly been warned about Sylvia, or maybe he just had good survival instincts. "Yes, Mrs. Pendergast. Is there a problem?" Liam asked, wringing his hands. "Yes, there is a massive problem, Liam." Sylvia pointed a shaking finger at Kendra. "This squatter is in my seat. I have asked her politely to move, and she threatened me. She threatened my life." Kendra raised an eyebrow. "I said if she touched me, she'd regret it. That's a boundary, not a threat." Liam looked at Kendra, then at his manifest. Mrs. Pendergast, this passenger is Miss Reynolds. She is booked in 1A. Your seat is 1F. "I don't want 1F," Sylvia shrieked, stomping her foot like a toddler. "I want 1A. It has the extra storage, and I don't want to sit across from her. She smells like poverty. She's probably smuggling drugs in that backpack." "Did you check her bag?" "Did you?" The cabin had gone silent. Other first-class passengers were peeking over their dividers. A businessman in row 2 was filming with his phone. Liam was sweating. "Mrs. Pendergast, please, lower your voice. Ms. Reynolds is a valued customer." "Valued?" Sylvia laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "Look at her. She's wearing a hoodie. She's probably using a stolen credit card. Liam, I am a gold medallion member. My husband spends $50,000 a year with this airline. If you don't move her, I will personally call the CEO of Vanguard Airways and have you fired. I will have you blacklisted from the aviation industry." Liam paled. The threat of losing his job was a potent weapon. He turned to Kendra, his eyes pleading. Miss Reynolds?" Liam whispered, crouching down so Sylvia wouldn't hear. "I'm so sorry. But would you mind terribly switching to 1F? It's the exact same seat, just to keep the peace. She's very difficult." Kendra looked at Liam. She felt for him. He was just a worker bee trying not to get stung. But if she moved now, she validated Sylvia's behavior. If she moved, she proved that money, or the appearance of it, trumped dignity. And as the new owner of this airline, Kendra needed to know exactly how far this rot went. "No, Liam," Kendra said loudly, ensuring Sylvia heard. "I will not move. I paid for this seat. I selected this seat. And I am staying in this seat." Sylvia's eyes bulged. She grabbed Kendra's backpack from the floor, the backpack containing the corporate secrets of a billion-dollar merger, and hurled it into the aisle. "I said move!" Sylvia screamed. The heavy bag hit the floor with a sickening crunch. The sound of a laptop screen cracking echoed through the cabin. Kendra stood up. She didn't stand up quickly. She unfolded herself slowly, rising to her full height. She was tall, nearly 5'10", and despite the sweatpants, she held herself with the posture of a queen warrior. She looked down at the bag. Then she looked at Sylvia. "You just made a very expensive mistake," Kendra said softly. "Oh, shut up," Sylvia scoffed. "I'll write you a check for your little school bag. Now get out." "Liam," Kendra said, not taking her eyes off Sylvia. "Get the pilot. Now." I can't bother the captain during pre-flight," Liam stammered. "Get the pilot." Kendra's voice was command, pure and simple. It wasn't a request. It was an order from God. Liam scrambled toward the cockpit. Sylvia crossed her arms, looking smug. "Good. Get the pilot. Captain Hames knows me. We've had dinner. He'll throw you off this plane so fast your head will spin." Kendra stepped out into the aisle and picked up her bag. She unzipped it and checked the laptop. The screen was shattered. The aluminum casing was bent. She looked up at Sylvia, a cold smile playing on her lips. "You know, Sylvia, usually when people steal my seat, I just buy the building they're sitting in. But for you, I think I'm going to have to get creative." "Are you crazy?" Sylvia laughed nervously. "You're delusional." The cockpit door opened. Captain Hames, a silver-haired man with 4 stripes on his shoulder, stepped out, looking annoyed. "What is going on back here? We are trying to push back," Hames barked. "Captain!" Sylvia lunged forward, grabbing the pilot's arm familiarly. "Thank God! This woman, this crazy woman, is refusing to give me my seat. She's threatening me, and she's clearly unstable. Look at her. She doesn't belong here. Please have security remove her." Captain Hames looked at Sylvia. Then he looked at Kendra. He saw the hoodie. He saw the messy hair. He saw the broken bag. He didn't see the CEO. He saw a delay. "Ma'am," Hames said to Kendra, his tone patronizing. "I don't know how you got on this flight, but Mrs. Pendergast is a priority passenger. If there is a seat dispute, the senior passenger takes precedence. I'm going to have to ask you to grab your things and deplane. We can rebook you on a later flight in economy." Kendra stared at him. "Excuse me. I have a boarding pass. I am in 1A. You are kicking me off because she wants my seat?" "I am kicking you off because you are causing a disturbance," Hames said, checking his watch. "I have a schedule to keep. Liam, escort her off." "I'm not going anywhere," Kendra said, planting her feet. Captain Hames stepped closer, towering over her. "Listen to me, Missy. You get off my plane, or I call the federal marshals and have you arrested for interfering with a flight crew. Do you want to go to jail tonight?" Sylvia smirked from behind the captain. "Bye-bye, trash." Kendra looked at the captain. She looked at Sylvia. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. "You're right, Captain," Kendra said calmly. "I think we should call the authorities. But first," she tapped the screen 3 times. "I'm making a call." "No calls! Phones off!" Hames shouted, reaching for her device. Kendra pulled back sharply. "Touch me, Hames, and you lose your pension. I suggest you wait 10 seconds. She put the phone to her ear. The cabin was deadly silent. "David," she said into the phone. "It's Kendra. Code Red at O'Hare. Flight 404 to Zurich. She paused, looking dead in Hames's eyes. Ground it. Ground the entire fleet. Captain Hames stared at Kendra for a moment, his face contorted in a mixture of confusion and amusement. He looked around the cabin, seeking validation from the other passengers, chuckling darkly. "Did you hear that?" Hames asked, gesturing to Kendra with his thumb. "She's calling for a fleet grounding. Lady, do you have any idea what you're saying? You're delusional. You're having a mental break." Sylvia Pendergast let out a shrill, mocking laugh. "It's pathetic, really. She thinks she's in a movie. Ground the fleet? Who does she think she is, the president?" She leaned in closer to Kendra, her expensive perfume now smelling like rot. "You're not grounding anything, sweetie. You're going to jail. You're going to a cell with concrete walls where you belong." Kendra lowered her phone slowly. The screen was dark. The call had ended. She didn't say a word. She just sat back down in seat 1A, or rather, the edge of it, since Sylvia was still blocking the aisle, and crossed her legs. She looked at her watch. 3, Kendra whispered. 2. 1. Thump. A heavy, mechanical sound echoed through the fuselage. It was the sound of the jet bridge, which had just begun to retract, suddenly reversing course and slamming back against the aircraft door. "What was that?" Sylvia asked, looking around. Then the lights flickered. The soft, ambient mood lighting of the first-class cabin surged to harsh, bright white boarding lights. The gentle hum of the auxiliary power unit, which provided air conditioning and electricity, abruptly whined down and cut off. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. "Why did the air go off?" a passenger in row 2 asked, sounding panicked. "Captain, why are we powering down?" Captain Hames frowned. "It's probably just a glitch with the ground power unit. Hold on." He reached for the interphone handset on the wall to call the cockpit. "First officer, this is Hames. Why did we lose power? Why is the bridge reconnected?" Kendra watched him. She saw the blood drain from his face as he listened to the response from the cockpit. "What do you mean, computer lockout?" Hames barked into the phone. "That's impossible. Reset the FMC. What do you mean you can't?" "Well, override it. I am the captain of this vessel." He slammed the phone back into its cradle. He looked at Kendra. For the first time, there was a flicker of genuine fear in his eyes. But his arrogance was a thick shield. He couldn't process that the woman in the hoodie was responsible. It had to be a coincidence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hames addressed the cabin, his voice tight. "We are experiencing a minor technical difficulty with the onboard computer systems. We will need to keep the bridge attached while maintenance takes a look. It shouldn't be long." "This is unacceptable," Sylvia shrieked. "I have a gala. I cannot be late. Richard will kill me if the centerpieces aren't right. Captain, make this plane fly." "We're working on it, Mrs. Pendergast," Hames said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It's not a technical difficulty," Kendra spoke up. Her voice was calm, cutting through the panic like a knife. Hames spun around. "You keep your mouth shut. You've caused enough trouble." "It's a master override," Kendra continued, ignoring him. "Initiated from the central server in Atlanta. It's a protocol designed for hijackings or catastrophic executive intervention. Every Vanguard Airways plane currently at a gate in North America just lost its flight plan. No one is taking off." "You're lying," Sylvia spat. "You're just a crazy woman making things up." Suddenly, phones started ringing. Not just one, all of them. The businessman in row 2 answered his. "Hello? Yeah, honey? Wait, what? The news? What do you mean?" He looked up, his eyes wide. "My wife says it's on CNN. Vanguard Airways has grounded all flights globally pending an internal management crisis." Sylvia's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. It was her husband, Richard. "Richard," she answered, putting it on speaker so everyone could hear her importance. "Richard, this airline is a disaster. I'm stuck on the tarmac, and there is this horrible woman who—" "Sylvia, shut up!" Richard's voice roared through the speaker, sounding frantic. "Listen to me. Are you in the air?" "No. We're stuck at the gate. The power is out." "Get off the plane!" Richard screamed. "Get off the plane right now. The stock is tanking. Someone triggered a kill switch clause in the merger contract. They're saying the new owner has initiated a hostile liquidation of the executive board. If that plane doesn't leave, the SEC is going to be involved." "What are you talking about?" Sylvia stammered. "Merger? What new owner?" "The sale happened 3 days ago, Sylvia. I told you this. Ether Logistics bought us out. But the owner was anonymous until—" "Wait." Richard's voice trailed off. "Sylvia, is there a woman on the flight? A black woman? Late 20s, maybe early 30s? Sylvia looked at Kendra. Kendra stared back, her face unreadable. "Yes," Sylvia whispered. She's sitting in 1A. She's wearing a hoodie." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Sylvia," Richard said, his voice trembling. "What did you say to her?" I just told her to move. She was in my seat. I threw her bag." "You threw her bag?" Richard sounded like he was choking. "Sylvia, that's not a passenger. That's Kendra Reynolds. She's the CEO of Ether. She owns the plane. She owns the airport lounge. She owns the mortgage on our house, Sylvia. She owns us." The phone slipped from Sylvia's hand and clattered onto the floor. Captain Hames stood frozen. He looked at Kendra. He looked at the hoodie. He looked at the broken laptop on the floor. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together in his mind with the force of a car crash. Kendra stood up again. The cabin was deadly quiet. "Liam?" she called out softly. The terrified flight attendant poked his head out from the galley. Yes, ma'am." "My tea is cold," Kendra said, "and I believe I asked for the authorities." As if on cue, the sound of heavy boots thundered down the jet bridge. The cabin door flew open. It wasn't the airport police. It was a phalanx of 6 people in sharp, dark suits, led by a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a face carved from granite. This was Mr. Bennett, the director of O'Hare Operations, flanked by Vanguard's top legal counsel and 2 federal air marshals. Captain Hames straightened up, instinctively trying to salvage his authority. "Director Bennett, thank God! I have a situation here. A passenger is interfering with flight operations and claiming—" Mr. Bennett walked right past Captain Hames as if he were a ghost. He didn't even make eye contact. He walked straight to seat 1A, where Kendra was standing amidst the wreckage of her laptop. Bennett stopped. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of immense respect and apology. "Ms. Reynolds," Bennett said, his voice grave. "On behalf of the airport and the entire operations team, I am mortified. We received your code red. The fleet is grounded. We have 19 aircraft holding on the tarmac in Chicago alone. London and Tokyo are holding as well." Kendra nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I apologize for the disruption to the other passengers. But it seems the culture at Vanguard Airways needed a hard reset. Immediately." "Understood, ma'am." Bennett turned slowly to face Captain Hames. Hames was shaking. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked like a fish flopping on a deck. "Captain Hames," Bennett said, his voice icy, "you are relieved of duty, effective immediately." You can't do that," Hames stammered. "I have seniority. I have a union contract. This woman, she's dressed like a—" "This woman," Bennett interrupted, his voice rising to a roar that shook the cabin walls, "is the chairwoman of the board. She signed your paycheck last week, you idiot, and you just threatened to have her arrested." Hames looked at Kendra. He saw the cold intelligence in her eyes, devoid of any sympathy. He realized that the hoodie wasn't a sign of poverty. It was a test he had failed spectacularly. "Ms. Reynolds," Hames whispered, his voice cracking, I didn't know. If I had known, if you had known I was powerful, you would have treated me with respect?" Kendra finished for him. "That's the problem, Captain. You shouldn't need to know my bank balance to treat me like a human being. You were ready to drag a paying customer off a plane to satisfy the ego of a bully because she looked the part and I didn't." She stepped closer to him. "You're not just fired, Hames. I'm revoking your flight privileges on all Ether-owned carriers. You'll never fly a commercial jet for this company again. Get your bag. Get off my plane." Hames looked around. The other passengers were staring at him with a mix of shock and pity. He grabbed his flight bag with trembling hands and walked off the plane, his career ending in a walk of shame. Then Kendra turned her attention to Sylvia. Sylvia Pendergast was pressed against the wall of the cabin, looking like a trapped animal. Her face was pale, her expensive makeup standing out starkly against her white skin. She was trembling so hard her jewelry rattled. "Ms. Reynolds," Sylvia squeaked. I am so sorry. It was a misunderstanding. I'm under a lot of stress. The gala, my husband, surely you understand. We're both women of status. We can work this out." Kendra looked down at the broken laptop on the floor. The screen was shattered, the keyboard bent. "Work this out?" Kendra asked. She motioned to one of the lawyers, a sharp-eyed woman named Eleanor. "Eleanor, what was the estimated value of the data on that drive?" Eleanor stepped forward, holding a tablet. "Ms. Reynolds, that laptop contained the only offline cryptographic key for the Vanguard Ether merger finalization. Without it, the integration is delayed by 3 weeks. The estimated cost of that delay in stock value drop and operational holdups is approximately $45 million. Sylvia's jaw dropped. 45 million, Kendra said, "and since you destroyed it maliciously, in front of witnesses, after being warned." Kendra paused, tapping her chin. "That's not an accident. That's corporate sabotage. That's a felony." "I didn't mean to," Sylvia cried, tears streaming down her face, ruining her mascara. "I just wanted my seat. I'll pay for the computer. I'll buy you 10 computers." "It's not about the computer, Sylvia," Kendra said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "It's about the entitlement. You think the world belongs to you because you married a checkbook. But you forgot one thing." Kendra leaned in close. "There's always a bigger fish, and you just swam into the shark tank." "Please," Sylvia begged, grabbing Kendra's sleeve. "Don't arrest me. My husband. Richard will fix this. He knows people." Kendra laughed softly. It wasn't a happy laugh. "Oh, Richard, that's actually the most interesting part of this whole encounter. You see, while I was sitting here drinking my tea, waiting for you to stop screaming, I was reading a file." Kendra signaled to the air marshals. "Officers, would you please escort Mrs. Pendergast to the private holding room in the terminal? We have some things to discuss regarding her husband's accounting practices." "What?" Sylvia gasped as the marshals grabbed her arms. "Get your hands off me. I am Sylvia Pendergast." "Actually," Kendra said, picking up her shattered laptop and handing it to Bennett, "I don't think that name is going to open any more doors for you, Sylvia. In fact, I think it's about to lock a whole lot of them." "Move," the marshal ordered. Sylvia was dragged down the aisle, screaming and kicking, past the rows of stunned passengers who were now recording everything on their phones. Kendra turned to the cabin. She took a deep breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, her voice projecting clearly, "I apologize for the delay. The captain has been replaced. A new flight crew is on their way. Drinks are on the house. Everyone on board will receive a voucher for a free round-trip ticket to anywhere in the world as compensation for this entertainment." The cabin erupted in applause. Kendra didn't smile. She grabbed her backpack, nodded to Liam, who looked like he was about to faint from relief, and followed the marshals off the plane. She wasn't done yet. The real drama was just beginning. The private holding room in Terminal 3 was a sterile box with glass walls, usually reserved for VIPs who needed security clearance. Today, it was an interrogation room. Sylvia sat at a metal table, her trench coat bunched up around her, a box of tissues in front of her. She was sobbing uncontrollably. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the terrified reality of a woman who had never faced consequences in her life. Kendra walked in, followed by Director Bennett and two men in suits who weren't airport staff. They were FBI. Kendra sat opposite Sylvia. She placed her phone on the table. "Where is he going, Sylvia?" Kendra asked quietly. "Who?" Sylvia sniffled. "Richard, your husband." Kendra leaned back. "See, here's the thing. When I bought Vanguard Airways, I did a deep dive into the frequent flyer accounts of our top clients. I wanted to know who we were serving. And the Pendergast Group account? It was fascinating." Sylvia looked up, her eyes red. "We're good customers." "You're criminals," Kendra corrected. "Your husband has been using Vanguard cargo flights to move undeclared assets to Zurich for 6 months. High-value art, gold, bearer bonds. He's stripping his company before the SEC indicts him for a Ponzi scheme." Sylvia froze. The color drained from her face completely. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," Kendra said sharply. "Why were you so obsessed with seat 1A? Why that specific seat? Why did you need the bulkhead storage so badly that you were willing to assault me for it?" Sylvia looked at the FBI agents, then back at Kendra. She stayed silent. "I'll tell you why," Kendra said. "Because Richard told you to bring the package, and the package was too big for the overhead bin. It had to be under the seat in 1A, where the security camera in the cabin has a blind spot." Kendra snapped her fingers. One of the FBI agents placed a large leather satchel on the table. It was Sylvia's carry-on, the one she had been so protective of in the lounge. "We opened it, Sylvia," the agent said. He unzipped the bag. Inside, wrapped in silk scarves, were 3 hard drives and a stack of physical ledger books. "The shadow books," Kendra said. "Evidence of money laundering for the cartel. Richard was sending you to Zurich to deposit the drives in a safety deposit box. That's why you couldn't check the bag. That's why you couldn't sit in 1F. You needed to guard this with your life." Sylvia slumped in her chair. "He made me do it," she whispered. He said if I didn't get them to Zurich, they would kill us. The people he owes money to, they don't sue. They kill. So you decided to treat everyone around you like dirt because you were scared?" Kendra asked. "You decided to humiliate a woman you thought was powerless because it made you feel in control." "I didn't know who you were," Sylvia wailed. "That is exactly the point." Kendra slammed her hand on the table, making Sylvia jump. "You shouldn't have to know. Dignity isn't a premium subscription, Sylvia. It's a basic right. And because you were so busy looking down your nose at my hoodie, you drew attention to yourself. You drew attention to this bag. You brought this on yourself." Kendra stood up and walked to the glass wall, looking out at the tarmac where the rain was still falling. "Richard Pendergast was arrested 5 minutes ago, trying to board a private jet in Teterboro," Kendra said, without turning around. "He gave you up immediately. He said you were the mastermind behind the laundering." "That bastard!" Sylvia screamed. "He's lying. I just wanted the lifestyle. I just wanted the clothes." "Well, you're going to get a new outfit soon," Kendra said. "Orange is very in this season." Kendra turned back to the FBI agents. "She's all yours. The airline will cooperate fully with the investigation." "Wait!" Sylvia stood up, panic seizing her. "Ms. Reynolds, Kendra, please, I can help you. I know where the rest of the money is. Don't let them take me. I can't go to prison. I have a skin condition. I can't eat cafeteria food." Kendra paused at the door. She looked at Sylvia one last time. "You know, Sylvia," Kendra said thoughtfully, "if you had just said, 'Excuse me,' and taken seat 1F, you'd be drinking champagne right now. You'd be on your way to Zurich. You might have even gotten away with it for a few more days." Kendra opened the door. "Karma doesn't usually move this fast," Kendra said, "but I made a special request." She walked out, leaving Sylvia screaming as the FBI agents moved in to handcuff her. Kendra walked back into the terminal concourse. It was bustling with people. She saw families hugging, business people rushing, the chaos of travel. She felt exhausted. Her laptop was broken, her merger was delayed, and she had barely slept. She felt a vibration in her pocket. It was her personal phone. A text from David. "David, news is out. Black female CEO grounds fleet to stop corporate smuggling ring. You're trending. Stock is up 4%. Also, I got you a new laptop. It's waiting in the lounge." Kendra smiled. A real, genuine smile. She looked at the departure board. Flight 404 to Zurich was reboarding. A new crew, a fresh start. She adjusted her backpack, pulled her hood up, and walked toward the gate. She still looked like a college student. She still looked like she didn't belong in first class. But as she approached the gate agent, a new woman this time, the agent looked up, saw Kendra, and her eyes went wide. "Ms. Reynolds," the agent breathed. "Welcome back. We have seat 1A ready for you. Would you like a pre-flight beverage?" "Water," Kendra said. "Just water. And maybe a little respect." "Of course, Mom. Right this way." Kendra walked down the jet bridge. She stepped onto the plane. She sat in seat 1A. It was just a seat. But it was her seat. And she had earned it. The Boeing 777 leveled off at cruising altitude, piercing through the cloud layer into the obsidian stillness of the stratosphere. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere had shifted from toxic tension to a hushed, reverent calm. The new flight crew moved like ghosts, anticipating needs before they were spoken. Kendra sat in 1A, her new laptop, a sleek, military-grade machine David had rushed to the lounge, open on the tray table. A glass of sparkling water sat untouched beside it. She should have been sleeping. The adrenaline crash from the confrontation with Sylvia and Captain Hames was beginning to claw at her eyelids, heavy and insistent. But she couldn't sleep. Something Sylvia had screamed in that glass interrogation room was looping in Kendra's mind like a broken record. He owes money to people who don't sue. They kill. Richard Pendergast was a mid-level shark, a Ponzi schemer. He didn't have the infrastructure to move that kind of volume, art, gold, bonds, without a bigger pipeline. He was using Vanguard Airways cargo lanes. That meant he had clearance, high-level clearance. Kendra opened the encrypted chat channel with David. Kendra. "David, cross-reference Richard Pendergast's board sponsorships. Who vouched for his platinum status? Who signed off on his cargo manifests?" The 3 dots of the typing indicator danced on the screen. David. "Digging now. Give me 10 minutes. Also, heads up. The board of directors has called an emergency virtual meeting. They know you're in the air. They're demanding you join via the in-flight SAT link. They sound Agitated. Kendra narrowed her eyes. Agitated. They should be relieved. She had just stopped a massive smuggling ring that could have implicated the airline in federal crimes. Unless... Liam? Kendra called out softly. The flight attendant appeared instantly. Yes, Ms. Reynolds. Can I get you anything? I need you to lock the cockpit door and tell the captain to accept no incoming communications from the ground unless they come through air traffic control on a secured frequency. No company calls. Liam blinked, confused. Mom, is something wrong? I suspect we're about to hit some turbulence, Liam. The corporate kind. Just trust me. Consider it done. Kendra put on her headset and logged into the secure boardroom server. The screen flickered, and suddenly a grid of 12 faces appeared. These were the titans of the old Vanguard regime, men in expensive suits sitting in mahogany offices in New York, London, and Geneva. At the center of the grid was Preston Calloway, the chairman of the board, a man who had inherited his seat, his fortune, and his arrogance from his father. He had opposed Kendra's takeover from day one, calling her inexperienced and culturally unfit in leaked emails. Kendra. Preston's voice boomed through her headphones, smooth but laced with poison. So kind of you to join us. We understand you've had quite the dramatic evening. I cleaned up your mess, Preston, Kendra said, keeping her voice level. We had a smuggler in first class. The FBI has handled it. Yes, we heard, Preston replied, adjusting his silk tie. We also heard you grounded the entire North American fleet for 2 hours. Do you have any idea what that cost us? Stockholders are panicking. The media is spinning this as a hostile purge of the passenger list. The media is calling me a hero, actually, Kendra countered, glancing at the trending topics on her second screen. But let's cut the pleasantries. Why the emergency meeting? We're invoking Article 15 of the corporate bylaws, Preston said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. Competency and stability. Given your erratic behavior, assaulting a passenger's property, grounding a fleet on a whim, creating a PR disaster, the board has voted to suspend your CEO privileges, effective immediately, pending a psychiatric evaluation. Kendra felt a cold chill run down her spine. It was a coup. They were trying to lock her out of the company while she was trapped in a metal tube over the Atlantic Ocean. You can't do that, Kendra said. I own 51% of the voting shares. Correction? Preston sneered. You will own them once the merger finalizes at 9:12 a.m. Zurich time tomorrow. But right now, you are still in the transition period. And as chairman, I have the authority to freeze the transition if the incoming CEO demonstrates instability. He leaned into his camera. We've already petitioned the SEC. The freeze is active, Kendra. When you land in Zurich, you won't be the owner. You'll be trespassing. Security will be waiting to escort you off the premises. The screen went black. Preston had cut the connection. Kendra sat in the silence of the cabin, the hum of the engine sounding like a funeral dirge. They had played her. Richard Pendergast was the bait. They knew Richard was dirty. They probably allowed him to operate. They wanted a scandal to trip her up, to make her look emotional and reckless, so they could claw back control of the company. She looked at her watch. 6 hours to landing. If she landed in Zurich as a suspended CEO, she was finished. They would bury the evidence, destroy the logs, and paint her as the angry black woman who broke the airline. She would lose Ether. She would lose everything. She needed to prove Preston was involved, and she had to do it before the wheels touched the ground. A ping from David. David, Kendra. I found it. The person who signed Richard's cargo manifests. It wasn't a low-level manager. It was an automated digital signature from the chairman's office. Preston Calloway authorized the shipments. Kendra's fingers flew across the keyboard. David, I need the shadow books data. The FBI took the hard drives, but Sylvia's phone. It synced to the onboard Wi-Fi before she was arrested. Did we capture the packet data? David, checking the server logs. Yes. We have a partial dump. 400 megabytes of encrypted Excel files. But Kendra, the encryption is military grade. It'll take weeks to crack. I don't have weeks, Kendra whispered. I have 6 hours. She looked at the sleeping passengers around her. Businessmen, families, people trusting her to get them to their destination safely. She wasn't just fighting for a company. She was fighting for the truth. Liam, Kendra said, standing up. I need coffee, a pot of it, and bring me the passenger manifest for this flight. The manifest? Liam asked, returning with the coffee. Why? Because, Kendra said, scanning the list of names on the screen, Preston Calloway is arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable. But he made a mistake. He thinks I'm alone up here. Her finger stopped on a name in seat 4K. Elias Vane. Kendra smiled. It was a wolfish smile. Elias Vane wasn't just a passenger. He was a 19-year-old kid who had won the Global Tech Innovator Award last year for cracking the firewall of the Pentagon just to prove he could. He was a white-hat hacker, a prodigy, and he was currently asleep 3 rows behind her. Kendra walked down the aisle to seat 4K. The young man was passed out, drooling slightly on his pillow, wearing a vintage rock t-shirt. Kendra gently shook his shoulder. 5 more minutes, Mum, Elias mumbled. Elias, Kendra whispered. Wake up, I have a puzzle for you. Elias blinked, one eye open. He saw the CEO of the airline standing over him. Am I in trouble? I didn't hack the entertainment system, I swear. Well, I did, but only to get free movies. I don't care about the movies, Kendra said, crouching down. How would you like free first-class flights for life? Elias sat up, wiping his mouth. I'm listening. I have a 256-bit encrypted ledger file that contains the proof of a billion-dollar money laundering scheme orchestrated by the man trying to steal my company, Kendra said, her intensity burning. I need it cracked, now. Elias rubbed his eyes. He looked at Kendra, then at the laptop she was holding. He grinned. Is the Wi-Fi good? I'll divert all bandwidth to your seat, Kendra promised. Deal. For the next 5 hours, the first-class cabin became a war room. Kendra and Elias worked in tandem. David, on the ground in Chicago, fed them server keys. Elias wrote script after script, attacking the encryption from every angle. The sun began to rise over the horizon, painting the clouds in hues of violet and gold. The descent into Zurich was beginning. We're running out of time, Kendra muttered, watching the altitude counter drop. 20,000 feet. I'm close, Elias said, sweat beading on his forehead. I've got the handshake. I just need the private key. It's usually a date, a name, something personal to the user. Preston? Kendra thought aloud. What does a man like Preston Calloway love most? Money? Elias suggested. Himself, Kendra realized. Try his own birthday. No, too simple. Try the date he became chairman. Elias typed it in. Access denied. Try the date his father died, Kendra said. The day he got the power. Elias's fingers blurred. Access denied. 10,000 feet, the pilot announced over the intercom. Cabin crew, prepare for landing. Kendra closed her eyes. She thought about the arrogance in Preston's voice. We're invoking Article 15. Try the date of the merger, Kendra said suddenly. The date he thought he won. Today's date. But backward, Elias typed. 2025-12-16. The screen flashed green. Access granted. Rows of data cascaded down the screen. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. Wire transfers labeled Pendergast. And right there, in the metadata of every single transaction, was the authorization code. PC Admin 01. Preston Calloway. "We got him," Elias breathed. "David!" Kendra shouted into her headset. "Are you seeing this?" "David, I see it. I'm mirroring it to the SEC and the Swiss Federal Police right now. Kendra, you're a genius." "No," Kendra said, looking at the terrified but triumphant teenager next to her. "I just know how to hire the right people." The landing gear deployed with a heavy thud. The Boeing 777 taxied to a remote, wind-swept corner of the Zurich airfield. This wasn't a standard gate. It was a private hangar reserved for heads of state and executions. Through the reinforced porthole, Kendra saw them, a fleet of black SUVs and a line of men in dark coats standing like vultures on the tarmac. At the center stood Preston Calloway, the chairman of the board. He looked impeccable, smug, and ready to destroy her. "Liam," Kendra said, standing up and smoothing her blazer. "Open the door. Let's not keep the wolves waiting." As the cabin door hissed open, the chill of the Swiss morning rushed in. Kendra descended the portable stairs slowly. Every step echoed like a gavel strike. At the bottom, Preston stepped forward, flanked by two private security contractors who looked more like mercenaries. "Kendra," Preston called out, his voice dripping with faux sympathy. "I'm afraid your access badge has been deactivated. The board has voted. You're suspended pending a psychiatric evaluation. Please don't make a scene. Just get in the car." He signaled his guards. "Escort Miss Reynolds to the vehicle." "I wouldn't do that," Kendra said, her voice cutting through the wind. She didn't back away. She stepped closer. Preston laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "You have no power here, Kendra. You're a liability. We're taking back the company." "You're right about one thing, Preston," Kendra said, pulling her phone from her pocket. "Someone is leaving in a secure vehicle today. But it isn't me." She tapped her screen. Instantly, the hangar erupted in a chaotic symphony of sirens. From behind the private SUVs, 4 armored vans bearing the insignia of the Swiss Federal Police screeched into view, blocking every exit. Heavily armed officers poured out, rifles raised, shouting commands in German and English. Preston's face went the color of ash. "What is this? I didn't call the police." "I did," Kendra said coldly. She held up her phone, displaying the file Elias had cracked moments ago. "It's over, Preston. We found the ledger. The shadow books, hidden in the merger files. We know you authorized the wire transfers. You've been looting the pension fund to cover your debts." "That's a lie," Preston shrieked, backing away as the officers advanced. "She's the criminal. She hacked the system." "Mr. Calloway," a Swiss detective stated, stepping into the circle and producing a pair of steel handcuffs. "We have the digital signature. PC Admin 01. You are under arrest for international wire fraud and money laundering." As the cold steel clicked around Preston's wrists, the arrogance finally drained out of him, leaving a terrified old man. He was shoved unceremoniously into the back of a police van, screaming threats that no one listened to. Kendra turned to the 3 other board members shivering on the tarmac. They looked at the police, then at Kendra, terrified she would point the finger at them next. "Gentlemen," Kendra said, sliding her sunglasses back on, "I am calling an emergency board meeting. Right here. Motion to dissolve the current leadership and appoint me solely in charge?" "Seconded," one man shouted immediately. "Agreed. All in favor." "Motion carried," Kendra said. "Now get out of my sight." She turned back to the plane. Liam was standing at the bottom of the stairs, holding her battered backpack with a wide grin. "I think you won, Miss Reynolds," Liam said. Kendra took the bag, looking at the Vanguard logo on the tail of the jet. "We didn't just win, Liam." She smiled, feeling the weight of the last 24 hours lift off her shoulders. "We just cleared the runway." Kendra Reynolds didn't just survive the flight, she revolutionized the industry. Under her leadership, Ether Vanguard became the safest, most equitable airline in the world. Sylvia Pendergast and her husband Richard are currently serving 15-year sentences in separate federal prisons. Preston Calloway lost his fortune and his legacy, becoming a cautionary tale in business schools about the dangers of underestimating someone based on their appearance. As for Kendra, she still flies commercial, she still wears her hoodie, and sometimes she still sits in Seat 1A. But now, when she sees someone being mistreated, she doesn't just call the flight attendant, she changes the policy. The moral of the story is simple. True power doesn't roar, it whispers. And karma is always watching, ready to upgrade the humble and ground the arrogant. If you enjoyed this story of justice and karma, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story about the underdogs winning. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that nice guys and badass CEOs finish first.